Okay, so first of all, DMS, digital music streaming. Here's some facts about DMS. It'll distribute audio up to 32 zones, which is exactly the amount of zones that Total Control supports. So it just gives you the ability to get music in every single zone in the Total Control system. It's very easy to add zones to the system, as you'll see. We'll be doing it together. It's easy to retrofit into homes that have Ethernet pulled into the rooms. It is not a wireless solution, and we're going to talk a little bit about why we decided to make that decision with this product. It'll seamlessly integrate into a home theater system and music distribution. So we have a lot of products that'll help integrate existing things that your customers may already own and enjoy. The thing I love about it when you're using our SMP2 is the two-way metadata feedback, where it's very fast. I use both Napster and Deezer in my system, and it's just so easy to search for an album, have it come up, get the cover art right away. It just has instant response that we've all come to know and love with the hardwired solution. There's room linking, which is great. So you can, if you have sound in a kitchen, in a dining room, like I do, and they're somewhat connected when you're entertaining. Everybody seems to hang out in the kitchen, but if you can get some music on in the dining room, you can link those two rooms together for that one event, and it gives you the ability to control volume as a whole for the entire house, or you can fine tune it per room. Really makes it easy. And then when you shut down the system, the room linking resets, so it won't automatically play sound in all the rooms. And we're going to show you a way to hard link those rooms if it's appropriate for the system once we start getting into the programming. One of the things that's really unique about DMS is it's an uncompressed CD quality sound system. High resolution audio is pretty hot these days. People have been listening to MP3s and things like that for well over a decade now, and kind of understanding that if you look at the vinyl, revolution that's happening, people are getting back into records and high quality sound, and we've designed DMS where it offers full 16-bit, 44.1 kilohertz sound quality, and it immediately sounds better than competing products. If you haven't listened to CDs in a while, if you've been listening to compressed music, you'll be shocked about how good they really can sound, which as salespeople enables you to sell the best quality speakers because it's more than just background music. And DMS also pulls in source sharing, where you can take any devices that the customer may have, plug them into an input on the DMS system, and stream those to any other room in the house. So that's just a high-level overview of some of the unique selling propositions offered with DMS. The other thing I love about it, and we really try to keep it simple. It's difficult to design systems if there's a million SKUs and you have to learn all these different products from all these different product lines. DMS is very simple. It's 4 products that'll accomplish anything you want. The granddaddy is DMS 1200, and this is a multi-zone amplifier and streamer in a single box. There's a few things that are kind of unique with it. It has 50 watts by 12 channels built into it. So it's an 8-zone unit that has 6 zones that are powered, and it gives you 2 preamplifier zones. Those preamplifier zones can be used to drive another amplifier. If you have an audiophile that wants to use a dedicated amplifier to it, but be able to stream all your music to it, they can do that. You can take that output from there and plug it to an input on an AVR and get all those streams into the AVR if it's in the same rack. One of the things that's neat about it is if you're not using all the powered zones, because it has 6 powered zones, so you're just using 3 of them, there's a feature on it that will reallocate unused power to the zones that you're using. And when we get in the programming, I'll show you how to do that. It's really simple. It gives you 4 streaming inputs, which means you can plug up 4 devices into it and stream those devices throughout the network and enjoy them in other rooms. And it is rack mountable. It's important to note that the rack mount ears are not in the box. They're inexpensive, but they're not included. And it takes up 3U in the rack. That's gives you an idea of the height of the device. And then from there we have the DMS 100, which is a stereo unit. It's 50 watts by 2. It has a preamplifier output as well. It's a single powered zone. It gives you that streaming input. It's a 1U device, so it's not really that tall. We do have rack ears available to it. So what you might do if you have another zone that you want to power, say a bedroom or something like that, where you have an Ethernet cable to it, you just plug a DMS 100 in there, hook up a pair of speakers to it, and now you have music in that room that you can enjoy any of the streaming sources to that. The other thing the DMS 100 will do, it has an input. So you can have a local source in that bedroom, plug it into this, and enjoy that source from anywhere else in the system. Pretty cool. The DMS in and DMS out are newer devices that we've offered. We introduced these at CDL last year. They're very small. They're about the size of a CD case if you look at the top of it, and very light, not very high, about an inch high. And the idea behind this device is it enables you folks to use products that you like to sell and add DMS functionality to them. Give you an example. Maybe somebody has a sound bar in a bedroom and you want to be able to stream music from other rooms into that sound bar. You can just use a DMS output, a DMS out product to that. It's very lightweight. You can mount it to the back of a flat panel TV. It's powered using power over Ethernet. So you just plug that Ethernet cable in that has PoE. You can receive a stream from anywhere in the system to that and enjoy it in that soundbar to make it really easy. And the DMS in, what that does, enables you to add a source to the stream. Maybe you take the output from your AVR or something like that, and you can plug that in there and enjoy that anywhere else. The one thing, and we'll get into what room linking is, the DMS in and DMS out devices do not support room linking at this time. But they do both have coax in optical, digital, and analog inputs and outputs depending on which device you have. So that's the lineup. It's just 4 devices, really straightforward. We also have an SMP2 streaming network player. I apologize for the annoying streaming thing on the bottom. Try not to let it distract you too much. It just keeps on going. But it shows all the sources that are built into this. The SMP2 offers two-way metadata feedback, which is very powerful. So if you're using Pandora, Sirius, Napster, whatever these are, the information comes up real time right on your user interface. So I use the 7100 remote control in my system. It's great. I have that in between my kitchen and my dining room. I select the room I want. I hit DMS. I can search for all the albums I want right from this, and it'll give me real-time feedback. It's very fast to launch time. Since it is a hardwired solution, it just comes up immediately. The other thing that the SMP2 will do is it'll work as a music server. I have a NAS drive in my system that's on my network, and I can put all my music on there. Could be music that I either bought or ripped from a CD. That's digital music, and it will come up and play that. Give me the cover art, total control over it, everything. But what's neat about it is I can play high resolution files with it. So I can play FLAC files in high res, which is wonderful. The high resolution output is only through the analog outputs of this, but I'm kind of a 2-channel audio guy, so I have my SMP2 in my main 2-channel system. The analog output's going into my preamplifier, and I can use it as a music server. You can also save favorite channels from any source on this. So one thing that I did is I found my favorite channels that I use on VTuner, this local radio, through that, and I can save those. And I've tied this into my system where I can speak to my Google Home and say, hey Google, play Yacht Rock, and it'll go to the Pandora Yacht Rock channel and play that for me in that zone, which is pretty cool. So this will stream to all of the DMS products in the system. And you'll see when we go into program, we start setting it up as selectable outputs. It has HDMI output. It has a coaxial output and an analog output as well. And so we'll go over how you can configure this when we get into programming. The other thing is it's firmware updatable. And what that means is not only can we offer firmware updates for functionality, new sources can be added in the future. For instance, when I first got my SMP2, we didn't support Deezer as a service, and through an update, that is something that's been added. So we're always looking for relationships with other companies to add new sources like that. Right now, there's nothing that we're announcing, but we know what people are looking for, and we're constantly working on those sources. So how does DMS work? What makes it different? I mean, there's a lot of audio solutions out there today, several of them wireless, easy to set up, but sadly, kind of low margin. That's not the case with URC. It's a very profitable solution. So when you look at how a music server system works like this, or music distribution, one way you can do things is you can offer buffering. So you have your main streaming system that's going to the clients. And the way buffering works is they'll send small portions of the audio signal to each of the receiving units. And once that is full and ready to use, then the things start playing. You can think of this like if you ever used YouTube on a slow connection. It'll like buffer, then boom, it'll start playing it. And that way it doesn't skip. What's great about buffering is it offers full fidelity because it's kind of like waiting to get filled up before it's playing. And once it's playing, it just kind of needs that slow drip of information to kind of keep up the pace. So the good thing about buffering is it's full fidelity. The bad thing about buffering is the sound can be out of sync, which if you have a kitchen and a dining room that are close together, and those systems are off by 2 milliseconds. I mean, the slightest amount, it'll drive you insane because the sound's off a little bit, kind of sounds like an echo chamber. So that's one of the problems with buffering, is it can create full fidelity sound, but it's out of sync. Compression is a little more common today. This is what you see with most distributed audio systems that work over a network, wireless networks, is what they do is they compress the signal. They look at the sound signal and they say, well, what can we throw out to make this thing smaller so it can be in sync, it can react quickly, and we'll just kind of throw out stuff that people might not notice so well. Perfect example is something called joint stereo, where they look at the left channel and they look at the right channel and they say, hey, any information that's shared between both of these, let's call that a single channel and get rid of the duplicates to make for a smaller size of data. Compression works fine for background music. I mean, we're used to compression. It's everywhere today, but it's not an audiophile solution. So what compression does is it's totally in sync because the file size is tiny, but the fidelity is affected by it. Some customers might be like, whatever, it's background music. This thing sounds great. That's fine. But for a real audio solution, compression is something you try to avoid at all costs. So what we wanted to do is come up with a system that was in sync and it wasn't going to compress the signal. And so that's what we developed DMS. So what DMS offers is fully in sync sound without compression. And you say, well, how do you do that? Well, there's a few different things we had to do. And it might not be the most convenient solution, but once it's wired and running, it's the best solution. So we'll dig into how that works. Well, first of all, if we look at a device, if we look at, this is the back of our DMS 100, our 2-channel stereo streaming amplifier, single zone amplifier. You'll see there's speaker outputs on the right. There's analog audio inputs, there's a preamplifier output, and then of course you have your connection to the LAN over here. So when you hook this up, you plug a source into this, a local source. What it's going to do is it's going to take that and it's going to build a stream out of that and send it into the network. That stream is CD sound quality, 16-bit, 44.1 kilohertz. We're not compressing it into like an MP3 or something like that, or we're using full audio bandwidth, CD quality. That'll stream it into the network, and this device will also take streams from other devices and receive them and enable you to play them back in this room using the built-in amplifier. So you can just add this locally to a room, plug it into the network, put a pair of speakers on it, and great, you've just added a zone of audio to that system. And you can plug something into it from that room and enjoy it in other rooms throughout the system. So when we start looking at this and we start growing this solution, say we have several different sources. We have an iPod, we have a Sonos, we have our SMP streaming network player, and we have a turntable that has a built-in phono stage in it. And we can start wiring these to different things. Maybe the DMS 1200, because it has 4 different inputs, has the iPod plugged into it using our PSX2 iPod dock. Maybe we have a Sonos Connect plugged in there, and we have a turntable plugged into that, and we have an iPod using a PSX2 in the bedroom in this system. And we have our SMP2 doesn't need to be physically wired to any of these. It just needs to be plugged into the network, and it will automatically stream all of its sources. So we look at something like this. In zone 1, somebody could be enjoying the iPod. Zone 2, somebody could be enjoying the turntable. Zone 3, the Sonos. Zone 4, the SMP2. And in the home theater, using our DMS AV. Today, this would probably be any AVR you like with a DMS input box added to it. You can enjoy any of these sources in that room. So say we have the iPod going through this room. So you can mix and match all these different sources and outputs through the system, and it's all going through the network. Now, a few things to note. If we're streaming full bandwidth audio through a network, through all these devices, it's a heavy lift. If you're streaming all of those through a network switch and you're doing all your other network work through that switch, it can literally, and will, just blow up your network. It's just too heavy of a lift. And that's the other reason why companies like to use compression, because it's not going to hammer the network as much because there's just not as much information there. But we want to stream high fidelity music, so there had to be a different way of doing it. And so what we did is we decided to create a subnetwork that works with the other devices. And this is a device, this MFS switch, that needs to be added to every DMS system. And now you'll know why. It keeps the audio streaming from interfering with your local area network. In a nutshell, this is how it works. Here's your network with non-URC audio streaming devices. So, anything in here could stream to the system, but this does not contain your DMS gear. Over here, we have our URC audio streaming devices that are all plugged into the MFS8, which is this device up top, and then this is connected to this network. And so what this will do is it will isolate the streams in a way where we can get two-way feedback, all those cool things, but it's not going to blow up the network by streaming all this high-resolution audio over it. So information can pass back and forth between the MFS network and the main LAN, no problem. But when it comes to audio, what we do is it can go one way. Something can stream into the system, but all of this high resolution audio that's going around, there's a brick wall. where it cannot feed back into that, but they can all speak to each other on this system. So this is how we achieved full bandwidth in totally in sync sound, is by giving it its own little subnetwork that connects to it. So the way these work, this DMS product, DMS8, it's required in any DMS system. And there's a few different ways you can do it. You can buy our DMS8, and it also comes in a PoE version, which I would recommend, because at that point, that's all you have to do is just plug in one of our UIs in the room that you want to use it in, and it'll power it up. So you can have a 5600 or 7600 in there, and it will supply power to that. But all of the devices on the DMS network are plugged into this. And then this plugs into your existing network. Now, say you run out of these, you need more than 8. If you need more than 8 of these, you do not need to buy another MFS switch. You can just buy any switch, a regular switch, and plug it into this and expand it. And everything on that switch will be protected from the network. Now, another option you have, one of our partners, Arachnus, that's sold through Snap, they make network devices that are DMS ready. And so you don't need to add a second device. You can just have your main network switch, and you can assign which ports on that switch are being used for DMS, which is pretty cool. So if you really want to streamline it, you can use one of those Arachnus DMS capable devices, or you can just add a MFS8 to the system. And that's what I have. I have the PoE one, and it's so easy. Put it right next to my network and plugged it in. It worked great. So that's all the hardware and high-level overview of how the system works. And next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start getting into programming. But first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a quick look at our questions here to see if there's anything that somebody said, hey, please add Amazon Music. I hear you. I'm an Amazon Prime guy. I would love to have my Amazon Music on there. Once again, we know people like Amazon Music. They're looking for Spotify. They're looking for these other things. And thanks for your input on that, Mark. That is something that has been heard. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how to take a system and add DMS into it, because it's really easy to do. So what I have here is my configuration for my system in my house. And I've removed the DMS products because we're going to add them together. It's not a large system. You can say I have a living room, a kitchen, dining room, master bedroom, and a couple of other rooms that are hidden because they just have thermostats and things like that in them that I don't really need a dedicated room for. So say we want to add DMS to this system. The first thing we do is we go to Add URC Devices. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a DMS 1200 to the system. So I've selected here. As you probably know, there's 3 ways you can add it to the living room. You can double click on it, you can drag and drop it, or you can select it and hit Add to Room. They all do the same thing. I'm going to just double click on that. And it's going to open up and say, the front panel lighting level on the DMS 1200. How would you like it? I use an MRX10, so I probably want it to match my MRX10, which is off, because in the room it's visible at night, and I don't need the room lighting up blue, although it would look kind of cool. So I select that here, and then I hit Apply, and it's going to put my DMS 1200 in the project tree under my living room, but it's going to come up saying, hey, make sure you add an MFS to this system, because if you don't, it's going to be a problem. And adding this MFS to the project doesn't physically do anything to the configuration. It's more of a reminder that, hey, you need one of these in there. So obviously, if you're using the Arachnus switch, you're not going to drag one of those in here. So it's more of a reminder, but it's a good one. We get a lot of support calls on DMS before we added that reminder. People are like, let's try it without it and see what happens. And you'll have the smoke out of the box on your network switch, and then you're wondering why it's not working. So we'll add our MFS PoE 8 to the system. And there it is. So we got an MFS PO88 and we got our DMS 1200 right here. Now the other thing I want to add to this system is our SMP2 streaming network player. So I can just add that to the room. And when I add my SMP2, it comes up with a few different options outside of the front lighting panel. I can shut the lighting off if I want. It comes up with a prefix label for music sources, and it's optional. At first, I'm like, I don't know what this is. It didn't make any sense to me. And I quickly learned from Andrew, one of our trainers, that, hey, sometimes people want to use a bunch of SMP2s in a large system so they can listen to different sources in any room they want. For instance, I have a single SMP2. If I'm listening to a channel on Pandora in the living room, somebody else wants to access the SMP2 from another room, they're also going to be listening to the same channel. It's not going to be able to stream multiple streams simultaneously. You just add another SMP2. So when you do that, you kind of need to know which one you're selecting and which stream you're listening to. So there's a few different ways you can do it. Like, my name's JR, so if I put JR here, what it will do is every stream that comes up from this SMP2 will have JRs in front of it. So it'll say JR's Pandora, JR's Deezer, JR's Napster, just so we know which one it is. So if you're using just one, you can just leave it blank. It'll just come up and say Napster, Deezer, Pandora, whatever. If you're using multiples, or you could say what room it is located in, living room or whatever. But that's all this is for here. Audio output option, when I select that, the default is streaming audio on, digital coax, and HDMI on. This here needs to be on for this thing to stream. You literally could just take an SMP2, plug it into the wall, plug it into the network, and hit on here. It has to be into your MFS switch, and it will stream and work fine. You don't need to physically plug it into any other devices. It'll just stream on its own. In my system, what I have is I have it in my main living room as a source of my 2-channel system. So what I did is I hit analog output. I have the analog outputs from that, plug it into my preamplifier in my system, and then I can use it as a music server. I put all my FLAC files, my high resolution files on my NAS drive, and I can listen to those in high resolution audio in my living room, which is really cool, and have that two-way feedback, and just use my 7100 to go through my entire music catalog. HDMI audio, if you're, some AVRs today actually use HDMI as an audio source, and you want to hook it up that way, you can do it here as well. Or if you're using your TV for switching for some reason, you can plug it into the TV, have the output from the TV go into your AVR. That's just an option you have. I don't do that, so I just have that off. This is exactly how mine's configured. And I hit apply. So now we have these 3 devices all configured in the project tree. So now what you'll see is step 8, DMS setup, is now available. Before I added these DMS devices, this here was grayed out. So next we can go here and we can start setting the system up. So the first thing we hit with is inputs. So what this is about is, are there any things, any sources that I want to plug into my DMS 1200 that I want to stream throughout the house? For instance, say I have a Blu-ray player that I like to play CDs in. And there might be a time where I want to pop a CD in there and be able to listen to that in other rooms of the house. If I just drag this over here, Blu-ray will populate, and now that's my input 1, and that'll be available as a stream anywhere else, which is really cool. The other thing I could do for input 2, say I wanted to have the output from my TV I don't have a cable box, as you can see I cut the cable. But say I want the output from my TV, it has an analog output, I can plug that into here. And if somebody's watching the game, say there's a Super Bowl party at my house and people are watching the game in the main room, I can select TV as a source, stream it everywhere else, and no matter where people are in the house, they'll be able to listen to the game while it's happening, just by dragging that into here. So I think you get the idea. These are the 4 inputs that are available in DMS 1200. If it was a DMS 100, there'd just be 1 input available. It's drag and drop what you need to stream in there. If you need to change it, you can't drag and drop it back. You just select it and you hit delete, and it'll pull it back for you. So we choose our inputs like that. Then from there we have our input settings. This is where you can fine tune the experience for the customer. For instance, say when I go from my Napster music stream from my SMP2 to the CD I'm playing on my Blu-ray player, the volume is just, it's out of whack. It's much louder or it's much softer. What I can do is I can go here, select this, and adjust the input level setting to fine tune the volume for that input to make sure it matches everything else. So when your customers are changing inputs, it's going to be nice and balanced. So that's kind of like a trim level for the input level. And you can see here what we've done is we've made some recommendations based on experience of what these typically are. But trial and error always works best. If it's too loud, you can just kick it back a little bit. If it's too soft, you can kick it up. The other thing you have is input switching. How do you want the switch? If somebody goes from SMP2, like the Deezer stream to the Blu-ray, do you want it to be like boom, an instant switch? Or do you want it to be a little more elegant where it fades one out and fades one in? And that's what I prefer. So I go to fade out, fade in, and you can choose how long you want that fade to be. So it's really, from 0.1 seconds up to 5 seconds, which is a long time. It defaults at 2 seconds, which I think is actually pretty good. So you can have your fade in, fade out there, and you can fine tune your input levels here. So after you set all that up, you can go to zone assignment. And here, this is where we're saying what zones from the 1200 are feeding which rooms in the system. So say zone 1, we want audio in the kitchen. We have a pair of ceiling speakers in there. We can just drag and drop this in here. Now you can see kitchen in the project tree says DMS 1200, zone 1. This is the way I actually have mine set up, and you can see the Google Assistant I have in there to voice control it, which is pretty neat. And then in zone 2, maybe I want that in my dining room. Zone 3, I'll want that to feed the master bedroom. And you can see it keeps on populating and changing over here in my project tree. Now, one feature that's really cool. Right now, we got 100 watts total, 50 watts of channel going to these 3 zones. Right now, we got a zone that we're not using. Maybe you sold this for expansion. You said to the customer, hey, when winter's over, let's come out and come back and let's talk about putting some sound out in the deck, or some sound about by the hot tub or something like that, or in the sunroom. So right now, these zones are not being used. What you can do is you click on max zone output, and you'll watch these numbers. Right now, they're all 100. When I click this, it takes the power from the unused zones and addresses them to the existing zones, which is a great way to explain to customers. They hate paying for stuff that they're not using. And so you can say, look, you're going to use that power. This system will automatically address it to those other zones. And then later on, when we add the deck in the hot tub speakers, you're going to grow into this thing instead of grow out of it. It's much more cost effective than buying multiple DMS 100s. And you also have 2 preamplifier output zones here as well that you can use. Those can be used to plug into an input on an AVR. So you can get the streams from the other rooms into that AVR. Or somebody at the last session this morning had a pretty neat idea where they said, look, I want to have a subwoofer in a room that's a DMS room, where they created another room that maybe would be called Kitchen SW. So I could go in here, add rooms, and if I had a subwoofer in the kitchen, Kitchen SW, if I add that room to the system, what I can do when I go to my DMS setup, I can actually go in here and add Kitchen SW to one of these preamp zones, plug the subwoofer into that, because it's an analog RCA output, and then you can link these zones permanently. So if I go to Configure, Zone 1, I can go in here and combine it with Zone 7, which is Kitchen Subwoofer, hit Apply, and boom, those two are one zone now. So that'll feed the subwoofer as well, and the amplifier from it will feed the satellite speakers. So it's pretty cool what you can do with some creativity in here. And that is also the case. I'm going to unassign this zone. And when you unassign the zone, you need to add it again. So say the kitchen and the dining room were really close to each other. And there was really no reason to have those separate. You want to kind of permanently link them, so when the kitchen or the dining room is selected, the music will come on in both. You can just go into Configure and just bring those zones together and permanently link them here. Customers can also link them temporarily on the Rooms menu, but that is a feature you have here if you'd like. Let me just unconfigure that and pull this back in here. And I'll delete this as well. I just wanted to show you a little trick if you run into that. So now from here, what we have is we have zone settings. And what I'm going to do, because you can do these settings in real time. This system we just created and it's not uploaded. What I'm going to do is I'm going to connect to my system. I go to Communications, and I'm going to pull my config right from my MRX10 that is connected. I'm going to show you how this works in real time. Sometimes when you put speakers in places like bathrooms that are really reflective, or maybe kitchens with their ceiling speakers where they're down firing, or if you're putting in-wall speakers in a dining room and they're on axis with the customer and they might be a little bright or something like that, you can actually go in with DMS and fine-tune the sound quality of each of these zones. And you can do it real time by connecting to that zone and listening to the effect and fine-tuning it. So what I did is I just got my laptop, went into the kitchen, and I'm going to show you how this works. Now that I have a live system uploaded here, when I go to DMS, Zone Settings, I just have a kitchen and a dining room in this system. If I hit Connect to Zone, what it will do is it'll open up this menu. And this will enable me to go to that zone and adjust the volume. So for instance, we have a volume max percentage that we can put in here, which is kind of like a limiter. So we don't have to worry about our customers kind of getting out of hand and blowing up the speakers and calling us and saying, oh, these things sound like they're rattling now, and can you come out here and look at it? What you can do is say, geez, these are small speakers. They're little ceiling speakers. We don't need to put like 100 watts into these things. You can adjust that max volume and limit it right here. The turn-on volume, you can have it last used or preset. If you put last used, I'll warn you, it can get kind of ugly. People are entertaining at night. There's a party going on. The system's banging. People roll out at 2 o'clock in the morning and go to bed. Next morning, you're waking up for work. You go into the kitchen, you turn on the system, put a little music on. It could wake up the whole house if you have last used. I tend to use preset. In preset, you can say, hey, when this thing comes on, come on at this volume level. And you can do this per zone. Uh, I have 16% in my system. That seemed to be kind of low, but I can hear it. And then from there, I can turn it up. You can just choose it. And by doing it here in this connect to zone, it's real time. So I can hear what that sounds like. And then you also have a turn on ramp rate, meaning when that volume turns on, how quickly does it ramp up to 16%? Kind of gives you that nice, elegant solution. From there, you also have fine tuning for acoustics. You can say, hey, is this an indoor speaker? Is it an outdoor speaker? And we'll apply equalization to that sound to adjust for that. Typically, the further we are away from speakers, it affects how we hear them. So we have different things you can fine tune here, and you can hear the effects in real time. You can also adjust your bass and treble and balance. And the customer has this ability too, if they want to. You can have a DMS settings button on that zone where they can go in there and adjust that, or you can hide it if you want. But what I really like is down here, the room EQ. You have basic, bass boost, and treble boost, which I don't use. I'm a custom guy. I hit custom, I hit advanced. It gives me a 5-band parametric equalizer where I can fine tune the sound of those speakers in that room for each zone. So, for instance, if I have my kitchen ceiling speakers and every time a certain bass note hits, it creates a rattle in the HVAC system. The vent just rattles at a certain frequency. What I can do is I can find that frequency. I can go here, adjust it, and then from there I can pull it back until the rattle goes away and be all set. You can and this is real time. I can hear this while it's playing. I can also adjust bass, treble, anything where you can choose the frequency and then boost or cut it from here. What the Q factor does, and there's a lot of information on parametric EQs that you can find online. It adjusts the notch or how wide it is. So if I'm adjusting 80 cycles and I'm turning that down by 3.5 decibels, if I change this Q factor, it'll say, hey, just turn down 80 cycles. Or if I can widen or make this more narrow, it'll take sister frequencies to the left or right of it, up or down with it, to create a wider filter. And so you have all these different settings that you can do in real time right on the system. And then you can apply right here. Once you apply, it'll populate. If you don't want to do it real time, if you just want to kind of wing it and say, well, I'll set it 16%, that's fine. You can do it all here as well. It's a little bit tougher without hearing it. But maybe there's times where you need to get this configuration going before the system's installed. Go back and fine tune it later. That's fine. And you also have apply global. So if you say max volume 50%, you hit apply global, every zone will be max volume 50%. So you don't have to go in and do it for each one. Same thing with the turn on rate. You're going to want the same experience in each room. Once you fine tune what it is, hit apply global, it'll do it everywhere. And then from there, you would you'd accelerate in step 10 and step 12, and then from there you can download it to the controller and make sure it's wired up and you're up and running. And so that's really DMS. That's everything it does. It's very simple to do. It works flawlessly, being a hardwired solution, and it sounds great. And for you folks, it affords you, if you're in sales, the ability to talk about good quality speakers. I mean, I was on the sales floor. I've been doing this since 1983. I made my living 100% commission for 15 years of my career, and so I know how important it is to sell things that are profitable if it's the right thing for the customer. Once you talk about DMS, be sure to let them know that, look, this is a high fidelity system. It's full CD bandwidth. That opens up the door when you're showing them speakers to say, look, if you choose the cheap speakers or you choose the top of the line speakers, it's the same installation price. DMS offers high quality sound put the best ones in. Just cry once, and enjoy it forever. Um, you can also use DMS with full-size floor standing speakers. I got a pair of Martin Logan electrostatic speakers hooked up to a zone in DMS, and it sounds amazing. So it really opens up that ability for you folks to sell more profitable solutions instead of just wireless, background music systems that you make 22 points on. So that's really an added feature for you folks that are in sales. So we got about another 10 minutes here. If you folks, and this is the first time we've delivered this webinar. It's brand new. We delivered it at 9 o'clock today, and this is really the second time. The first time me delivering it because Elvin isn't feeling well, but he's got my back. What questions do you folks have about DMS? I use it, so I'm pretty well versed in it. You can just type them in the questions dialog box, and happy to answer your questions. How do you stream stored music from a computer on the network? It's a great question. It's really easy to do. That's all you have to do is you have the music on your NAS drive. I'm using a Western Digital Passport or something it's called. It's plugged into my network. And inside that, what it will do is it'll locate and search for all the music. So what I did is I put it all in one folder, all my music. And then from there, I have subfolders for different artists and stuff, just so it's not a mess. And what the DMS system will do, it's really the SMP2 that's doing it. It will scan that hard drive and automatically locate that music in the artwork and everything, and give you, just like any music server, you can search by artist, you can search by song title, all that stuff, and it will play right through it. It works really well. I've had no problems with it. You can have it automatically update every once in a while to look at that drive. If people put new music on it, it'll just look at it like every night or whatever, and it will pull up on the network, no problem. And it will do, FLAC files as well, or it will stream the stuff. You can also point it towards somebody's iTunes library on their computer, and it'll pull that stuff in and use that as well. So hopefully that answers your question, Tim. Another question said, when will the DMS output box have preamplifier capabilities like Zone 7 and Zone 8 on the DMS 1200? I don't know specifically what you're looking for on that. Right now, we do have a DMS output box that has analog outputs. It does not currently have room linking, if that's what you're asking about. I know that is a feature request. It is something we're working on. I don't have a timeline on it. Not that just because in training we don't really find out about that stuff. I'm not in the engineering meetings, but that is something we're working on, is having room linking with those DMS boxes, if that's what you're asking, Mark. It is something we're working on, and we know people want that. Any other questions you folks have? Feel free to type them in. I'm going to leave this open until we hit the top of the hour. And later on, if you folks, if a question dawns on you and you're like, hey, gee, I wish I asked this or we're on the webinar, you can always email training@universalremote.com. And by doing that, we all get a copy of that email, and we'll get you an answer and get right back to you. Yeah, Mark, the adding room linking is what you would need to do that subwoofer thing. And I know that would be such a cool solution, because then you can just take a DMS, add it to the back of the subwoofer, plug it in, and boom, now my subwoofer is part of the party. But currently it does not offer that, and that is something we are working on. It'll be pretty cool when that happens. Somebody says, aside from the SMP2, what is your go-to third-party streamer best experience? The SMP2 is the only one I've actually used at home, so that's what I've been using. I know you could use a Sonos Connect to the system, something like that. I had somebody in a training that used a Bluetooth adapter and plugged that in, and people could stream their phones into it just by using a Bluetooth streamer that was pretty inexpensive. Um, Elvin, I don't know if you've had any experience with some of the other devices. I know we have two-way modules for some other streamers that would probably offer a great experience as well. But Gary, that's really the only one that I've played around with where I can confidently say this is the way to go. And Sonos is going to be changing. There's a whole new Sonos module coming out, so I don't know what it's going to look like as a streamer once that gets updated. It might be amazing.
Yeah, it's the only one that I've used in the past is Sonos.
Okay. Well, that'll give you two-way feedback.
Uh, yeah, it'll still give you two-way feedback. It gave you two-way feedback on the old Sonos module, and the new one will still give you two-way feedback as well.
Cool. So that might be a good solution if you're trying to get, if a customer says, look, I have to have this online streaming service and we don't have it. I understand that. And so the Sonos Connect might be a good option for you, Gary. Any other questions? Just feel free to type them in. Well, I want to thank everybody for taking the time to join us today. I know everybody has busy schedules and time's money, and just knowing that you folks are taking some time out to learn about our products, we really appreciate that. At URC, one of the things I really love is we understand that you folks are our customers, and without you, we're not here. We look at this as a partnership. So thanks for taking the time to learn that. And if you do have other questions in the future, like I said, you can email, you can call support directly. One of the things we really pride ourselves on is our support staff is not outsourced. They are local. They are at headquarters, right there where engineers are working there, the director of training is working there. So when you call support, you're calling the mothership, which is really cool. And so we also have sales engineers in the field that you can reach out to as well. They're there to support you, and ultimately it enables you folks to sell with confidence and know that we've got your back. When that system's out in the house running and it says URC on it, we want that to be operating correctly. So we'll do everything we can to make that happen for you folks. So don't be afraid to use the resources that we've invested in. Thanks a lot, Tim. It's good seeing you on the webinar once again. And just so you folks know, this webinar is recorded. I will get this on our YouTube channel. So if you need to look at something else in the future, I'll be able to put this in there for you, and you'll be able to review it, and you'll be able to hear my New England Boston accent once again. All right, well, it looks like there's no further questions, so we're going to be closing out this webinar. Once again, thank you for taking the time, and know that we're here to support you. If you have any questions in the future, just reach out to us, and we'll get back to you as soon as humanly possible. Thanks again, and have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you folks soon.